Hi, everyone. This is Gloria, the host of the Loving the Work You Do podcast. And today I have with me Patience Rowe. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Patience is here today because, of course, this is our grief series podcast. And we share that in common. And so we're going to explore that. We will also explore Patience, her unique story. I feel like she's a really authentic person. I'm curious as to how one develops authenticity at a young age, and we'll explore that. Patience is also a native of Washington, D.C. So, yay! We're in the DMV. She is a singer. She is a creator. She is the director of programs at Maker's Lab in DC. And most importantly for me, when I say she is a creator, it's because she has a show called The Good Grief, right? That she created years ago that supports healing for people that are going through grief. So hopefully 2021, she'll bring it to life again. Yay, fingers crossed. So, and with that, I hope that everyone listening will join us and stay for this conversation. If everything I've explained about patience sounds like something that you would love to dig into, then come on in, pull up a chair, and let's learn together. So, hi, Patience. Nice to see
Hi.
you.
Hey, Gloria. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
Same. I'm excited to have you, and I hope for me that every time anyone comes to the show that I'm still this excited. So, just saying. So, I know I did my intro, but one thing I always love people to do is to introduce themselves also, because I may see some things in you, but then you may also know some things also. So, can you share a little bit about who you are with the people listening?
Absolutely. Like Gloria said, I am the director of programs of an arts-based organization in DC called Maker's Lab. We have transitioned into creating virtual and video opportunities for artists to come, especially Black LGBTQ artists, to come and perform and create. I am also a middle school science teacher at the moment. Yeah. So I teach sixth, seventh, and eighth grade science. I am married. I did create it's actually the 2-year anniversary of Good Grief. So
Ooh, okay.
in January of 2018, 3 years, right? 2018, 19. Yep, 3 years, 3-year anniversary
3 years
of,
this year. Mhm.
I'm like, it's 2021. Ugh.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Good Grief is 3 years old now. I've done it in Seattle and I've done it in DC. So hopefully I get to do it again. And I'm an advocate for folks, especially people of color, exploring their grief and
Mhm.
being able to find the best ways to grieve that fit them. So
Okay.
that's who I am.
That's that is amazing. And so the I also noticed that you sing. So when you sing, are those songs that you just come up with by yourself
Some
or
of them. So I have about 4 albums with my band BOOMscat. I'm in a band also called
okay.
BOOMscat. We have a few albums on Google Play, Spotify, everything. And so I write my own songs, but I do covers as well.
Okay.
So
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. Good work.
thank you.
Good work. So I'm going to start with a few questions. So one of the questions I like asking immediately is, so for me, like I'm not sure if the word is enamored, but like I am, when I see people who seem to know what they want to be in life or have always known, it just is something that I love to explore. Like I know when we talked initially, I know for a fact that you address yourself as queer, right?
Mhm.
And apart from that, like how and it's not just something you did as an adult, which a lot of people do now. People come out and declare their individuality or their gender at an older age, but at a young age you knew that that was who you were, and it's not that you even stopped being that at any time, but you've continued to sustain it. And I wonder if for any young person, right, that how do you come to understand yourself, um, and embrace that at that young age?
I think that I honestly don't know how I got here, but not that it wasn't a struggle because my mom was definitely very much so in the church, right? And so my godparents are pastors. My mom was always very active in the church. She was a minister, so I consider myself a PK. So it was a struggle.
PK,
Right?
pastor's kid
Pastor's
people.
kid, yeah. Preacher's kid, pastor's kid, yep. And so it was definitely a struggle being clear that I was queer. I came out at 15. I was actually forced out. Somebody saw me holding hands with a girl in DC. And so someone told my mom, and that is how she found out. But I think finding people who are my tribe, I guess, finding
Hmm.
people outside of home
Hmm.
who, were also queer was a big deal for me. And being from DC, I realized that people who are like in southern places, who are in smaller towns, do not have that privilege, right?
Hmm.
And so I'm grateful that I had that. So I had mentors and I had people at school who were part of the GSA, and I had friends who were queer and whose parents were okay with it. And so I kind of
Oh,
gravitated
wow.
towards them. And when I went to college, I chose a place where I knew that I could be myself. So I went to
Okay.
college in Chicago and I went to an art school, and they had a thriving LGBTQ office.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so being able to find my tribe, they exist, right? They
Okay.
exist even if they don't exist in your home. There are people that look like you, that love like you, that will support you. And I think I found that for
Mm.
me, and that has just continued my growth in my identity, which is such a small part of me, right? It's a part, but it's like there's so many other phenomenal and amazing things that I do.
Hmm.
And my queerness as an advocate for queer folks is a part of me, but there's so many other things, right? There's so many other identities that I have. And so I just found people that help to foster
Hmm.
those different identities.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I think, at a young age, where so many of us are being conditioned by our environments, by the words that we hear, that, you are a breath of fresh air. And thank you for digging deep into that. I also want to draw out one thing that I heard you say, and that was that as a young child, right? You found community in places. I thought that was amazing, and truthfully, DC and just being in the DMV facilitates some of those things. If you're already in community there, then you probably can find other pockets of community. I also feel like the information you shared, that you actually intentionally chose your college. See, that's wisdom. Like, because you can try to fit in to like a generic place and totally feel terrible like inside of your soul for a long time. So if anybody's listening who is trying to figure out who they are, I feel like that's a good lead in, good information for them to have. So thank you for sharing that. Um, and again, I don't think I mentioned this, but Patience is also a little bit Nigerian. Are you 50%
I'm
Nigerian?
50% Nigerian. My
50%. Okay.
my dad is a Nigerian. I
Yeah.
usually have a picture of my dad, and you can very much so tell that he is Nigerian. So
Oh my
yeah. And I look just like him. I really do. I look a
Oh
wig off.
my gosh. Okay, that's good. So I like that we have that in common. Did you used to say, oh, you have to make sure that your grades are really good. Get A's only. Da, 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 da.
Yes. My
Okay.
mom thought she was Nigerian. She was not. She was from Southeast. But when I tell you, my mother thought that she was Nigerian. If my aunties call or my dad's sisters or anybody calls, she would go to straight Yoruba accent. Like, and
Oh wow.
she understood enough pidgin to communicate.
Yeah. Oh my
But
gosh.
she was from Southeast, but she swore she was Nigerian. Swore up and down.
She was one of those people. She fully took on the culture. Okay.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think I know a couple of them. Growing up, after we moved back to Nigeria, like even we had family in the United States who came back to Nigeria with their wives. And you could see that they actually really enjoyed the culture. Again,
Mm-hmm.
like that's why you're such a unique individual, and you were able to be your own self from a young age. I feel like with a mother like that, you can't go wrong. So
Very true.
um so one other question I will ask is about this work, the so the project you're working on is Good Grief, but also you are in the field of the creatives. And I wonder, at least for me anyway, because I am always on a journey to find that thing. But I wonder for you, is that also something you knew from a young age? Like, oh, you knew you were going to be in the creative field. Like,
Absolutely.
you did. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. How?
Always.
How do people know these things?
I mean, my family sings. So all of my aunts and uncles, they've always sang, and only one of them sang professionally. One of them was a
Okay.
professional singer, but they all performed, and I loved it. I loved theater
Mm,
so much. I was in all of the middle school productions that I could be a part of. When I got into high school, I was in all of the productions I could be a part of. I did 2 semesters at American University with their Youth Voices program. So I was in their radio program and created
okay.
radio spots and also stories, short radio stories. Um, and I just always knew that the arts was what I wanted to do.
Wow.
It's always been a choice. I've learned how to play. I'm not proficient anymore. I had the basics of like the violin and the piano, and so I was just always taking lessons in the arts. I was in dance. I was doing all of the things, um,
Wow.
and it's always been a choice for me. The arts has always been a choice. The pandemic is actually why I'm teaching because it's harder to have gigs now. There are less gigs because nobody's coming outside, and
Hmm.
virtual gigs are weird and they pay less. But I quit my job um, when I was 24, 23. I worked for DC government in their HR department, and then I worked for a their PR department. So I worked for their marketing and public affairs department, and I quit my job because I got it invited. My band got invited to South by Southwest for the first time,
Oh
and
yeah.
so I was like, I can do this full time. And then I had to go back to work again. Then I quit my job again. But I have always and continually chosen the arts in all of its forms.
Okay.
And even now, as a teacher, the thing that I use most are my
Mhm.
skills from acting. That is what
Mm.
I use most. My improv skills, all of those things as a teacher. That's what I use.
And yeah, because you teach sciences
Hmm.
is weird. Like you're in
Yeah.
creative arts, but you teach sciences.
Yeah.
How is that
They
even a
needed a science teacher. I worked with the school last year in their aftercare program, and so I would do things with the school. And they need one of their science teachers quit, so I was one of the first choices. And my wife also teaches math there, and
okay?
so I was around. That was I
So
was.
that means you're the one of the creatives that is also very sharp with their math skills.
Oh
Because they're
no, absolutely not. That is not the truth. That is the opposite. I'm just very good at studying what I have to teach because I'm not science isn't my background.
okay.
But I do study. I teach 3 different curriculums, so I study all different types of things. I read the
Ah,
material, stay ahead of the material. So that is how I. That's why acting is such an important part because I do a lot of improv. I do a lot of improvisation. teaching
That
time.
is so true. That is so true. Wow. Okay. So it's like research skills and yeah, and then just being on your game, like you said, acting.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay. I like that. We're gonna get into the grief stuff. So um I know that again, like I said at the beginning, we both have the grief in common. And that your mom died from breast cancer.
Hmm.
Um, can you share the, the grief story of that and how it affected you?
Yeah. So one thing about me is I talk about my mom at least once a day. I talk about my mother every day.
Oh
I
my God.
mention her. And I had to really get over this thing about like people don't get tired of hearing about your
Hmm.
mother. You always talk about your mother. And I'm like, after a while, I was just like 27 years with that lady, me and her for a long time. It was just us. I'm
Hmm.
going to talk about her. I'm not holding this in. I'm going to talk about my mother every day. And so um, she passed away in 2017. I hate when people say lost a battle, lost her battle. She didn't
Mm.
lose anything. She wasn't a loser. She did not lose anything. Cancer took her from here prematurely at that, and so she was 57 years old, and she battled with metastatic breast cancer, and so it had spread all over her body, and she got really sick and really tiny. Um,
Oh.
and then it was too late, but she finally ended up getting her mastectomy and having the tumor removed, and she was on oxygen and getting better. Like she was actually doing better. And I traveled in March again to go to South by Southwest for like the third time. And I was getting ready for a performance. I was opening up for Erykah Badu and Wu Tang Clan and Ari Lennox and all these people. And somebody sent me a message on Facebook and with their condolences. And I was
Hmm.
like, I don't know what you're even. What are you talking about? And so I started to call my family because my mom was being taken care of. We were thinking about putting her in hospice until she could get better because that was the thing. She was going to get better. There was no she wasn't going to die from this. She was going to get better. Her faith was so big that it infected everybody around us, even as we saw
Mm.
her dwindling. And so I left and then she passed away. And I stayed for a couple of days in Texas and did my shows. And then I came back to bury my mom. And so one thing about my mom is I had never really even seen her sick before
Okay.
breast cancer really took over. She was a hairstylist. She stood on her feet for hours. She owned her own building. She paid it off after 30 years in downtown Silver Spring, which is a feat. She just was a powerful, powerful woman. And so the impact of that, everybody's grief is hard.
Hmm.
And also the impact of like everybody else grieving my mother was a lot. And so she was just the rock of my family. She was the rock for other people. You know, when you're a hairstylist, you're basically somebody's psychiatrist. You are
Yes.
somebody's everything. And so she was that to a lot of people. And so it was very hard for me to lose my mom because she was that to me. We had our
Mm.
differences, we had our struggles, all of those things. But she really, she was a phenomenal mother. And so I lost her in 2017. Came back and buried her and was okay and was doing okay for a little bit, was trying my best to get through it. And then a few days after my birthday, I went to go see my best friend because she was also sick. Her and my mom got diagnosed at the same time. She had a bone cancer. I'm sorry, she had a sarcoma, and so I went to go see her, and she looked so much like my mom in the hospital bed when she was sick. She was just she had to cut her hair off and all of these things. And a few weeks later, I got the call from her mom that she passed. And so I was out and her mom called me and left a message and I knew immediately what it was. I called her back, she told me, and I fell out in the middle of the floor, in the middle of the ground on Rhode Island Avenue.
Wow.
And so um, that was really the start of my spiral into my grief. I was doing okay
Mm.
until I was not. until I was not. And so for about 2 years, I wouldn't get out the bed. I didn't. It was 2 years off and on. I quit my job because they were going to fire me because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was drinking a lot. I was doing drugs. I was just doing a lot of stuff that I had no
Wow.
business doing. Or had no business doing, but it was grief,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I
Grief will
did
do that
not
to you.
know. Yeah, I didn't know at the time that that's what it was, but I was just in such a spiral of depression.
Mm.
So that has been my process until I wasn't anymore, and then I suddenly started coming out of it. I started working at the school that I work at now, working with kids, and just trying to get back to the person that not the person that I was, because that person's not here anymore, but really just
Ah,
deal with my new normal.
that's powerful. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement right there. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Mm.
was like not having two of the most powerful women in my life,
Mm-hmm.
there. And in a year before that, a year before my mom passed, my work mom passed. And so the woman who worked with me at DC Housing, who had worked with me since I was 15, she also had cancer. And that was quick. And that took her. And that was really hard. And then my mom's play mom passed that same year. So the women in my life
Mm.
were just leaving. The people that I would have called on when my mom died
Mm-hmm.
were not here.
That's tough.
And so, and then the people I would have called when Krista died, like my mom, were not here. And so I was in a rough place. And so out of that came grief, but also came Good Grief, which is the one woman show that I wrote. And it was just about all of the things that I went through
Mm-hmm.
during that depression. And there were a lot of things, and it kind of
Oh, wow.
encapsulates many of them.
Okay.
Um,
What would one of those be? The one that maybe after a particular show, someone came to you and they were like, I relate to that part of your show so much.
oh, there were actually a whole lot of things, but I wrote a poem called, and there's no explicit word in it, but I wrote a poem called "I Washed My Ass Today." That was one of the
Mm.
first poems because I was not taking showers. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't brushing my teeth. I just wasn't doing things, and so the poem "I Washed My Ass This Morning" just was talking about how, like, I wouldn't get out of the bed. The only joy that I had today
Hmm.
was was taking a shower. That's
Mm.
the only thing that I could do, and that was every now and again.
Hmm.
That having doing that was a feat enough. I couldn't do anything else. If I took a shower, I could not do anything else.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
that's the poem that resonated with me the most, and I think with other people as well.
Mm. Yeah, I think I resonate with it too. I see now that maybe in a way I have been lucky. Um, my struggle hasn't been that much. I don't know why, but I've still struggled and I've battled. I think one of the good things I learned pretty quickly was to check in with my therapist every week. Once my father passed, I was like, immediately a pastor was like, I need an emergency session with Dr. Blah, blah, blah. And so I got an emergency session. Like, when she found out what had happened, she was like, okay, do you want to be seeing me every week? I'm like, look, I want to see you every week. So I
Can we
feel
do like
like,
today? Shoot.
no, I should, but there was a week I did need her more than once, right? And I couldn't get her, and I ended up a girlfriend now told me, she was like, oh, try the I think the crisis helpline, maybe the 211 number, I believe. So I'd called them, and they listened. Of course, they don't actually give you advice, but sometimes, even just someone listening to you talking is part of the process. So that that was nice. At the beginning, I know for me, I also how do I explain this? I don't do like strong drinks and things of those nature. If I do drink it, it'll be because like maybe I bought wine because I really want to drink wine. So I'm not gonna say I don't drink wine, but I don't. If I check my box at the doctor's, I'm one of those people who like, you know, how many times do you drink a year? I'm like the 2 to 4. Well, one thing I learned from my dad, when I had my first child, which I fought with the guy, which was a shame. He was like, after the baby came, I remember we were at Holy Cross Hospital and he came to visit me because he was around from Nigeria then. And he was like, oh, you brought me like, it's called gin in Nigeria, but like whatever, he got it here somewhere. Um, and it was like, oh, so now that you've had the baby, you drink this, so it clears your thingy. And Lord knows I was such a spiritual or religious fanatic then. Like I was like, never will I drink that. It was like it was gonna help you. I was like, no, it was like this is what you use when you just give birth, and it's also good, for when your heart is heavy and you're just not your normal. So of course, in celebration of him passing and knowing like I was grieving him, I was like, you know what? Wine.
Yeah.
Wine. So
Listen, traditions and rituals and creating rituals that connect you to your people after they are gone is so important. It is
I think
so
that's what it
important.
is. I was trying to connect myself to him.
Listen, the first Mother's Day after my mom passed, my friends, because I had some really amazing, amazing, amazing friends, even when I was going through all of my crap and being who I was being, my friends were phenomenal in that, in helping me through my grief. And they just all came over to my house with food. They brought salmon, they bought grits, they bought vegetables, they bought all of the things that my mother would love because most of them knew her. They just bought things and sat with me. We just sat, we laughed, we joked, we did all of the things, and that helped me to feel closer to her. Like finding rituals, drinking wine, whatever it is that you got to do. If you have to pour a glass for him, whatever it is, those things are so important to do.
They are. They help our grieving. I think one thing I also did was there's a table in my house, or in my room, I should say, where like I'm always at that table whenever I call him. Of course, I didn't know I was making memories, right? So I just noticed like after it passed, like every time I sat at that table, especially the last conversation I had with him where I'd written something he had told me to do down, right? It was just almost felt like, I don't know, it just felt weird. Like I was still stuck or something. So I remember talking to my therapist about my feeling, and then she was like, oh, you may have to change certain things if it triggers a memory of them. So I ended up having to just move that table around, and truthfully it helped me, like, because it almost felt like that position was always for him. And in my head I'm like, you know what, I see how I will at some point move out of where I am, because the place really represents him too for me. It's but again, we all find ways to help us on that grieving journey. So I know in our other conversation you mentioned that you had maybe like a little bit of no, not mental health issues. Was it mental health?
Yeah.
Okay. That also depression, mental health. I want to label it correctly.
Depression. So
Depression.
diagnosed with chronic depression. I have PTSD,
Oh my gosh.
panic disorder, and ADHD.
Let me tell you something. I just got my psychological test done this past week. Yes, because I've just been like, there's certain things I know I can't do that I've struggled to overcome in the last couple of 5 years. But I also know that I can't just be giving myself labels, which I have done all my life. Like, but I noticed the patterns, and I was like, you know what? I told the therapist, like it was even before my dad had passed, I was like, look, I want to explore this. I know like it appears like I'm an anxious person. I know I'm dramatic in certain ways, which would I used
The
you
shirt
too
says
one
born
extra.
extra. It's very
I need
accurate.
I need that shirt. But I didn't know that dramatic also meant like it's just like you're like this. That for me that's what dramatic means. But anyway, I did the test. So we'll see. She said well, all the tests I did would show like, you know, whatever I am. So I should get my reading in February, the session with her. But I think you know, it's good information to know how those things affect how we deal with situations, and how we show up for ourselves.
Hmm.
I feel like one thing I know better from 2020 is that we're not all the same. And you know, I just remember growing up, everyone always wanted me to be doing, and I guess it's also like a Nigerian thing, you know, it's always A's, you know, if you get C's or what have you, you know, you're not living up to the Nigerian standard. And you're always producing, you know, you're never resting, you know, it's always off to the next thing. And I remember a few years ago I was part of a project somewhere, and you know, we'd done it, it was really good. And then the next thing I heard, the program ended and someone, or the event ended and someone had said, oh, we're going to make it better next year. I said, why do we need to make it better? Like, can't we just enjoy that we finished this year and then replicate the same thing? It doesn't, you know, need to get better. But that's the not running me, then realizing like, you know, I think you're different. I think other people actually just want to keep the momentum going. And then
Hmm.
I realized like certain things about myself. I joke, I say I'm OCD. Sometimes I'm you know, sensitive. I'm an empath, but I overthink things. A good example. She told me what was the difference, similarity between 2 and 7.
That was one of
Oh,
the questions.
the question was the similarity between 2 and 7,
Okay.
numbers 2 and 7.
Right.
Of course. What do you think my answer was? You would know.
Okay. I don't even know because I would overthink that too. I would have to think about that for a little bit. Like
Exactly.
they're
I
not, one is odd, one is even.
exactly. She was like, so I was like, I thought about it. She was like, okay, just give it a try. So I was like, oh, they both slant to the same side. She was like, you're overthinking it. She was like, they're numbers.
They're not-
That was something else. I was like,
That's the similarity.
oh, I was like, see why I'm here?
I would have never been that simple. It's like it's not that simple. No, I have to think about how they're shaped. Like, are they
Exactly.
both prime numbers? Like, what's the similarities?
I'm like, wait, people live this simple life where they just look at stuff and
Right.
they
And it's just is what it is. I would never know.
it's crazy. But that's why but that's so we'll find out what I have in February. But I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely an overthinker. So, you know, that was good. So yeah, back to how your you know, medical diagnosis may have affected you during the grief, I think. Because in a way it piled up on top of grief. You
Yeah.
already have something that you're living with. You know, you're practicing maintaining it, and then the grief happens. You know, your mom, and then your best friend.
Yeah. I think so. First, grief doesn't end, right? Like it doesn't go away. It just
Mm.
how we respond to it changes, I think, over time, or it doesn't.
Oh,
Sometimes it
I don't know. This my dad's zone so far. I think one of the guests earlier on said something, a word that I'm gonna borrow, substantial.
mm,
My dad's death was substantial for me
mm,
compared to my brother passing in 2014, compared to, I think I had a girlfriend that was really close to me that passed in college. My dad's own,
yeah,
substantial.
yeah.
So.
So absolutely, there's like substantial grief, and then there's grief that we just deal with on a regular basis, right? And so uh, depression for me is similar. Like it doesn't go away. It's like there are days where I'm good, where I'm working through it, where I'm having great days, where I'm happy, where stuff is good. I have things to look forward to, and then I'll just be sitting one day, and then I'll just be like, "Dang, I'm not just sad. I'm apathetic. I am. I don't want to be around anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be bothered. I'm irritable. There are just days where I'm like, depression does not go. It's just underlying and it's there. And grief is similar, right? And so at times it feels like you'll never get out of it. And so those two things weighing on my body at the same time, and then I'll have anxiety too. So anxiety about, am I going to die? I went immediately about 4 or 5 months after Krista passed, and I was like, I think there's a lump on my breast. I went to my doctor and she was like, this is just tissue. You're probably about to come on your cycle. I was just so worried about dying. And also I was suicidal. So I was like, I'm worried about dying, but I don't want to be here. So it was like depression, anxiety, grief, all of those things compounded on top of each other. And I think it made it harder for me to actually deal with my grief at first, or to even acknowledge it at first. And so, yeah, I think all of those things compounded on top of each other simultaneously, going in and out of each, having good days and having horrible days, just kind of, it all came to a head at one point. And so I think that now that I'm finding ways to identify what it is, like not just saying, "Oh, today I'm really sad." No, today I'm sad, but I don't want to do this. I'm irritable. I don't feel like cleaning. I don't feel like touching a dish. But I'm going to do something. I'm just going to do something to get out of it. I'm going to take a shower, or I'm going to walk outside. I'm going to clean off this table. Whatever little things I can do, I'm going to do them. And I think that has been key to like keeping me out of the stuck place that I was in. Because I was in a deep depression on top of grieving. Right? Like, and what the only way that I can explain depression is like being under a weighted blanket and not being able to get up, like not being able to move, being under a weighted blanket that is too heavy for your body. And just, it feels comforting to be in it, right? It's consistent, it's there. And so you know that it's not going anywhere. It's very consistent. I don't know if there's a show called Big Mouth on Netflix, and it's very inappropriate. However, super inappropriate. It's about a bunch of middle schools. It's talking about puberty and sex and all the things. But there are these kind of monsters and animals. They have the hormone monster and the hormone monstress, and they have the depression kitty. And the depression cat kind of, she's sweet. She's like southern. She's the way that they depict her, she looks like a Cheshire cat. She comes and sits on you and she's like, "Oh baby, don't get up. You don't need to get up. Just stay right here. Just stay right where you are. It's comforting here." Like it's just consistent,
I
right?
relate to that voice.
That tells you like you should just stay here, because why do you need to get up? Why do you need to go do something? And so all of those things together, just like that comfort and that anxiety and that nagging need to like get up. You have to get up. But why? Why do you need to do anything? Nobody likes you. Your family hates you. You don't call them. You don't answer their phone calls. You don't do what you're supposed to do. Why would you call them? And when I finally called them, my family started crying because they missed me so much. Because they wanted to be around me so much, but I had told myself that because I didn't answer their phone calls, or because I was in this place, they would hate me.
Yes.
And it was just like they were so overjoyed that I contacted them, and so excited that I was coming out of that place. Oh, I'm crying now. But thinking about that, but it's just like it's a place that you feel stuck. Right. And grief it wasn't just the grief that did that. It was all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I like the weighted blanket. You're gonna laugh at this, even though it's been a thing for about 2.5 years. I don't have a weighted blanket.
Somebody just got me one for Christmas.
Oh, they just did. But so I couldn't really relate to the analogy. But when you said, the cat was sitting like, that I can relate to, because there were days, like, even normally, even till now, I joke, like, I was like, you know what? I tell the kids were like, oh, mom, this, around the time it was happening, mom, do this, do that. I'd be like, oh no, my dad just died. And then they would shrink. And I knew, like, I was just using that as a cop out, like, and that was the ones I vocalized. But like you two, there were days I didn't feel like taking my bath. I couldn't drive. Thank goodness my kids were around. Like, but they had to be in places. Um, so all I did was I'd be like, okay, I would sit beside you. You do the driving. Um, Thank God you have a learner's permit. You have a driving thingy. All right, I'll do that. I'll be beside you. But like, it was a lot, and I just wish one thing I want people to know, even from what you said, is that when we don't reach out to people, it's not like we're being intentional. Um, I wish people would just go with their gut instinct and be like, oh, something is going on. Let me just reach out to the person. Um, and it doesn't even, I I don't even need to respond, right? But don't give up on me after the second text or
Hmm.
after the first phone call. Don't take it personal. At that point, it's not about you all, it's about me, the person grieving. And, everybody grieves differently, but some of us grieve like really hard. Like, I go deep. Like, I'm grieving, I'm brokenhearted. I am really doing it hard. I
Hmm.
wonder how people jump out of it. I know that's one of the questions I asked my therapist, and even other people I've spoken to. And there's an after effect if you don't grieve well. If you don't grieve well, there's a problem that's going to be festering in you in there, or you could lose it one day too. So that's
Because
the thing.
you can't repress your feelings. They bubble up.
Yes, they come up at a later time. So did you have therapy at the beginning when
Um,
yours was happening?
I started therapy when my mom was sick, and I
Okay.
went to the therapist like right after she passed. I made another appointment, but I didn't go back after that. My doctor
Okay.
had given me some Xanax. I was taking Xanax, and I was
Okay.
just zoned out for a little bit.
Dana. mm,
I
mm.
was zoned out for a while,
Yeah, that would do that to you.
and I just I wasn't no, I wasn't going to therapy like I should have
Okay. Because I was wondering if that would help. I know about
been.
Xanax because so I was diagnosed with PMDD. It's called premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I don't
Hmm.
think anyone knows about it,
I did.
but you do.
Yeah, I know about
Oh, okay. But I turned 40 a couple of years ago, and then a lot of stuff just started happening, and I couldn't figure it out. But like for a whole 1 year, I charted the way I behaved every week. Before the cycle, during the cycle, after the cycle, weeks leading into the cycle, and I started noticing a pattern. So like after another year of doing that, I was like, okay, Doctor XYZ, I don't understand what's going on with me. We had like a whole series of conversation. That was with my medical doctor, and then they were like, okay, we'll do. I think we did like a face-to-face conversation where she asked me a lot of questions, and after that, she was like, okay, go do this test. Did the test, and I was like, oh, you have PMDD. I was like, what in the world is PMDD? I was like, what? I was like, okay. It comes to this, there's some good things that comes about, which, the whole, I have a lot of energy for some other stuff. But then the other, the part, the depressive stuff, you know, like there'll be like, for like a whole 3 days, sometimes I wouldn't be able to sleep. And like, I couldn't tell anybody. Like, but that doesn't mean I'll go to work and I'll be tired. No, I'll still head to the office and like still strung up on energy. I guess the same energy that made me not sleep would follow
Got you
me
through the day.
to the into the office. Um, anyway, she one of the things she gave me was like a tiny bit of Xanax, but because she said, "Oh, we'll test it. I see how it works." So I'm telling you, I felt like a zombie
Yes.
and she knows I don't even take vitamin D when she prescribes it to me, and then she gives me this thing. I'm like, I don't do medicine well. Like I know, which is why I don't do alcohol. I can't hold this thing down. I'm allergic to like 500 type of things in the world. Look, I ended up leaving it alone.
Yeah.
But good thing is that I noticed that about myself, and I felt for me that wasn't I didn't want to feel that way.
Yeah.
So that medicine was a no. But then I found an homeopathic medicine that really works. This beautiful Nigerian lady sells it. She's actually like a real professional who just started making it because of personal reasons, and so good. I'm telling you, I use that thing. I have no problem. All that to say that you being on Xanax, I truly understand. I understand the feeling
Yeah.
about that. So I think I hijacked that conversation.
No, it's a lot. The Xanax was it it helped me for what it was helping me for, but when it wasn't helping me, it was not. It was not helpful. Like I think when I first got home, they prescribed it because I was freaking out about my mom passing. I
Mm,
like was having a lot of I had anxiety, and I had a lot of anxiety about it, and so that was why I had the prescription. But after a while, it just I was just not myself.
mm.
I was not myself.
And it works for some people, though, right?
It
That's
does.
just how.
It did not work for me the way that it should have. It got me into a place where I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to again didn't want to move, didn't want to do anything. So that was like on top of the grief, on top of the depression. I was taking Xanax, and I was just
Mm.
uh, like
So
not moving.
how did you get the word back to the doctor to be like, I need to be off of?
I don't even think I said she prescribed it to me once, and I think just for that moment, that's what I had the prescription for the like the funeral and all of those things,
Okay.
so that I didn't have which that didn't help that day. But um, I I didn't even tell her. I just stopped.
Okay. So you knew intuitively that okay, this isn't okay. This
Yes,
isn't for, okay.
this is not for me.
I like that. I think I'd do the same the same thing also. I did the same thing really.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at this question I have here. When you say process over productivity, right? When you're grieving, um, especially with 2022, I'm already a year ahead.
You trying to get
20,
out this crazy year?
exactly right. 2020, but everything we've gone through, all the deaths that happened, um, what does that mean if you were talking to a younger person who's lost a family member, a friend, a girlfriend, a mother's friend, what would that mean to from you to them?
A lot of times we just want to get to the end result. We just want to get better, right? And which is fair. Like you want to get out of whatever you're in, but whatever process that you are in is just as if not more important than the end result. So like that those 2 3 years where I was just having a really hard time, I wasn't working, I wasn't doing much of anything, people couldn't get a hold of me. Those things really prepared me and propelled me to the place that I'm in today.
Okay.
I'm in such a better place that I did not see for myself. I did not see this end for me. I saw another end. I didn't think I would be here. I'm 30, I'll be 32 this year. I didn't think I was going to see that. And
Mm,
so the process, even though it was difficult, it was hard, it was Some days it was disgusting. I was disgusted with myself, all of the things. That process really made for a better testimony
Mm.
in my life, like being able to talk to people about grief and say like confidently, like I know I have this experience firsthand. It is difficult, but you will actually make it out of here. Like I am in a new normal place, right? I miss my mother every single day.
Mm.
Every day. There's not a day that I don't think about my mom. And for Christmas, Krista's mom sent me Krista's favorite fragrance and a picture of her.
Oh, oh my
And
gosh.
she's dealing with her own grief of losing a daughter. And
Wow.
so like that triggered a little bit of stuff in me, right? And so it grief doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
It just we just find different ways to deal with it. And that is a part of the process. That's
I
a
think
part
that's.
of the process.
Oh wow, that's so deep too. Doesn't really go away.
It doesn't. It just, it gets different. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even going to say it gets better. It just gets different.
Yeah, I think so. When I think of my dad from the day it happened until now, yeah, I see how it's different. It hasn't changed, but you know, yeah, I totally see
Hmm.
that. Okay. So, let me see. Thank you first of all again, or again for for sharing this all of this journey with me and anyone else listening. I know it's a lot to have a mom pass, and then I think I have, and then a few months later, 6 months later, to have your best friend pass too. So um, that's a lot. That's a lot. So as we I, d- I want to ask about the process when your mom was in the hospital. Um, I know some people can have parents who pass away in the hospital. Some have parents that pass away at home. Was there anything unique about her passing away in the hospital?
So my mother was one of her friends was taking care of her. One of our close family friends was taking care of her in her last days, and so they had a hospital bed in her house. She had to have a hospital bed because she couldn't lay in a regular bed.
Okay.
And so she was on the couch. From I wasn't there, so from what I know, she was on the couch talking, and then she just kind of drifted off, which she would do because she was on medication, and she just kind of drifted off. So she passed away, and they called the ambulance. So by the
Okay.
time she got to the hospital, she was already gone.
Okay.
So um, my my mom's close family friend, our close family friend, Miss Marsha, my aunt Marsha, as I call her, she when I got back home, she showed me this stain on the window. It looked like an angel, I guess. To her, it looked a little bit like an angel. She was like, "This is what your mother was looking at," and I like to tell myself that that was that's what she saw. That was the last thing she saw before she passed. And so everybody had to find ways to comfort themselves
Yeah.
when my mom passed, because again, she was really important to a lot of people,
Hmm.
and I think that was unique that she was in a place where she was safe,
Hmm.
and she really just I like to believe that she really just got tired.
Hmm.
She got tired and I'm sorry.
You are safe here. We
She
can
got
we can both do this here. Today's just not my day to be teary-eyed, as you know. The days are never the days we think.
yeah. I didn't even put any mascara on because I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Um, I don't want to be that person. But she chose. She made a choice, and she just got tired. She was tired of oxygen. She was tired of
Mm-hmm.
not being able to breathe. She was a shell of herself.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
she was 6 figure big. She couldn't eat anything. She couldn't walk. She was in a
Mm.
wheelchair, and she just that wasn't who she was.
Yeah.
And so,
A lot of them give up when they get to that stage. I know, like, even my dad, of course, never got sick when he was alive, which
yeah,
we're all now like, oh my gosh, that's not a good thing. But then, you know, but then come to realize like he had always mentioned like, oh, you know, he wants to be able to go when he wants to go. He
Yeah.
doesn't want us to be like there dotting over him, changing diapers, all of these things. And it's so funny because he said all of those. And in a way, he got his wish
Yeah.
because, like, it was really fast, bam, 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 like within, it's like almost like a week. At least for me, it was just a few days. I found out on a Sunday, he died on a Wednesday. So it was too fast. And even when I found out on a Sunday, we weren't told that it was a dire condition. It was just like, oh, he's not, he's on oxygen. He has malaria.
Mm.
Everybody in Nigeria has malaria. He was still texting people from his bed. I'll see you when I get home. I mean, so it didn't, like, he's doing okay. So it didn't sound like an emergency. And we're still like chatting with family. And then he passes on that Wednesday morning. So I'm like, wait. And then everything he's always said, flashes back in front of you. He never wanted to be a burden. And maybe the heart knows what the heart knows. And your mom also the same thing. She knew, okay, this is the right time to go.
Mhm.
And look, the angel came. And
And I
and
wasn't there. She didn't want me to see her.
mm-hmm,
That
mm-hmm,
and I always tell myself she waited for me not to be there to
mm.
go.
Because she knew what that would do to you too. Yeah, they're
And
always looking out for us, though.
the last thing she said to me was how proud she was of me. So that's the last conversation that I
Oh.
got to have with my mom, you know.
Mm, oh,
So
that's sweet. I like that they still affirm us. Yeah, towards the end, my dad had some really good because it's on my Facebook page, and like he had been text chatting like just random statement. Even though then I was like, why is he saying that? Like I didn't know it was already not feeling well. So those are always great reminders. So thank you for being so open and vulnerable. I enjoyed our conversation. And as we wrap it up, um, I would love for you to share about your upcoming projects and your social media handles. Um, if you're on Clubhouse, make sure you had that.
yes, I am on Clubhouse. I cut off my notifications, so I'm not on there as much. But gotta hop on Clubhouse, eat some more. But I am. You can find me at patientthings.com. All of my stuff is there. I'm Patient Things on everything on Instagram, on Twitter, on Clubhouse. So you can find me at Patient Things. I had just started a blog, so that'll be up
Oh,
very
cool.
soon.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm super excited to share that with you all. But just follow me on patientthings.com. You can follow me and also subscribe to my newsletter, so that'll be sent out to you.
Okay. All right. So everyone, you've heard it from Patience. You know where to find her. And hope like she has me, she inspires you on your journey too. So see you all later.
Bye.